Chapter 31. Too assuming. Didn't Caspian say that he wanted to hold a grand wedding to outdo you? Marilyn fumed. Tell the Hudson family to book Lunar Hotel entirely. If they think it's too expensive, the Stewart family will pay for it. I want every single person of importance in South Lake City to attend your wedding. Let's see if Caspian can outdo you then. That's a good idea, Grandma. I'll call Richard right now and get the Hudson family to send out a few more invitations, Alicia exclaimed in excitement. She merely wanted to badmouth Willow, but she ended up achieving entirely unexpected results with Marilyn. Much to her surprise, she no longer needed to pay for her own wedding. Caspian said if his wedding isn't as grand as yours, he'll divorce Willow. I'll get someone to prepare the divorce papers. On the day of the wedding, they can sign it on the spot so that we'll be rid of Caspian, Marilyn added. That means Willow will be signing her divorce papers on the day of her wedding. Just the thought of that alone is humiliating, Alicia chuckled. I will make sure they're both humiliated. That's the only way to appease my anger, Marilyn declared. Every single person of note in South Lake City received a wedding invitation from the Stewart family and the Hudson family. Both families were renowned in South Lake City. With both of them involved in this wedding ceremony, the major players in the business world would certainly show them respect by attending the event. The Hudson family did not reserve the Lunar Hotel entirely. They simply booked a few floors. After all, it would cost too much to book every single room. They only booked a few more floors because they were afraid too many people would come. It would be a problem if they did not have enough space for their guests. Caspian secretly came over to South Lake Corporation and spoke to Miranda. Do you need something, Mr. Lynch? Miranda asked. Nope. I just wanted to ask how Willow's been doing at work lately, Caspian replied. Mrs. Lynch is beautiful and capable. She was able to adjust to her role very quickly. Everything has been going well so far, Miranda reported. That's good to hear. Having said that, Caspian studied Miranda. Miranda was dressed professionally. Though she was slender, she had curves in all the right places. Her legs were also particularly eye-catching. Meanwhile, Miranda realized that Caspian's gaze was a little odd. She became flustered. Was Caspian interested in her? If he made his intentions known, should she agree? Miranda swiftly shot that down. Caspian was married. She did not want to throw herself at him. That being said, he was a young and capable man. It did not seem that bad to be his mistress. Miranda's thoughts made her blush. What's the matter, Ms. Barton? Your cheeks are flushed. Are you feeling unwell? Caspian asked when he noticed her reddened face. It's nothing. I'm fine. Miranda snapped out of her reverie. She thought to herself that it would be strange if she did not blush under the intense gaze of a handsome and powerful man like him. All right. I need to trouble you with something, Caspian said. It's not trouble at all. Just let me know what you need me to do, Miranda replied. My wife Willow and I are holding our wedding ceremony in 2 days, but she only has one bridesmaid. Things are better in twos. No. That's why I'd like to ask you to be her bridesmaid. Would you be okay with that? Caspian asked. He stared at Miranda earlier, because he had been pondering this question. Miranda was an attractive woman. She would not look out of place standing next to Zoe. Most importantly, she was publicly known as the vice president of South Lake Corporation. If she became Willow's bridesmaid, the Stewart family would surely look at Willow differently. Once Caspian finished speaking, Miranda realized she had been too assuming and misunderstood the situation entirely. He merely wanted her to be a bridesmaid at his wedding. Surprisingly, she felt a little disappointed. It's fine if you don't want to do it. It's up to you. Caspian interpreted Miranda's silence as reluctance. I'd love to, of course. It would be an honor for me to be a bridesmaid to the president's wife, Miranda declared. Sooner or later, Willow would be running South Lake Corporation. Miranda thought this would be a good opportunity to establish a closer relationship with Willow. That's settled. Then, also, I hope you can accompany my wife when she goes dress shopping. Make sure she buys the most expensive and luxurious wedding dress. Don't worry about the cost. On the wedding day itself, you, Willow, and her friend Zoe will only need to wait for me, Caspian instructed. Rest assured, Mr. Lynch. I'll make sure the job gets done, Miranda replied. Thank you, Caspian said. Not at all, Mr. Lynch. There's one more thing I need to tell you. I'm not sure if you've heard, but the Hudson family and the Stewart family have given wedding invitations to every person of importance in South Lake City, Miranda informed. It's fine. They're just a bunch of clowns. Just ignore them, Caspian remarked. But you said you wish to hold a grand and lavish wedding. Everyone in South Lake City has accepted their invitation. When the time comes, won't you have fewer guests in attendance? Miranda asked worriedly. I had all the arrangements. You just need to remember one thing. My wedding will leave all of South Lake City thunderstruck, Caspian asserted. Puzzles me, Mr. Lynch, Miranda commented. What is it? Caspian asked. Why would someone like you willingly put up with the Stewart family's disrespect? Miranda voiced her confusion. Maybe because of love. I want Willow to be the happiest woman in the entire world, Caspian declared. Many would envy her, Miranda expressed. Anyway, you can go back to work now, Caspian said. All right, I get going now, Mr. Lynch. Miranda walked out. As soon as Miranda left, Sylvia called Caspian. Yes, Caspian asked. Where are you, Lord Caspian? I have matters to report to you, Sylvia said. The CEO's office at South Lake Corporation, Caspian replied. I'll be right there. Around 15 minutes later, Sylvia appeared before Caspian. What is it? Caspian asked. Caspian, it's best if we talk about this somewhere private. This place. Sylvia glanced at the security cameras in the office. Let's go to the rooftop, Caspian suggested. The two of them made their way to the rooftop of South Lake Corporation's building. They had an excellent view of South Lake City. The company building was a landmark in South Lake City. Few had access to the rooftop. What on earth's going on? Caspian asked. You're being so secretive. Chapter 32. The vice president will be my bridesmaid. I went back to Dord City the day before yesterday and received the latest update. Our enemies along the border have been growing restless, a grim-faced Sylvia reported. I'll handle this once my wedding's over. I'll consider returning to the battlefield, Caspian announced coolly. With you at the helm, Lord Caspian, no one will dare attack us. Their doom will be upon them, Sylvia proclaimed with gusto. How are the wedding preparations coming along? Previously, Caspian left Sylvia in charge of organizing the wedding. Since there were only 2 days left, he wanted to know how things were coming along. Don't worry, Lord Caspian. Everything's under control. I hired the best experts. You won't be disappointed with the wedding, Sylvia promised. Were you the one who chose the Jade Dragon Grand Hotel? Caspian asked. That's right. Sylvia nodded. The wedding doesn't need to be too lavish. It was a little unwise of me to instruct you to make it as grand as possible. Now that our enemies are invading our borders, the wedding is no longer my top priority. Our nation's in trouble. As the Lord of Diadem Hall, I will be heading straight to the border to protect my country, Caspian declared. He had a feeling Sylvia was going to organize a wedding that would shock the entire country. He did not think it was necessary. The Lord of Diadem Hall has to have a grand wedding. It'll be a good chance to show Willow your might, Lord Caspian. As for the invitations, I've given them out already. All of the most important people in Diatoran will be attending. They won't be an embarrassment at all, Sylvia said. In that case, I'll let you handle everything else. I won't get involved. Oh, and one more thing. I've decided that Willow's bridesmaids will be Miranda and Zoe, Caspian informed. It would have been fine if you hadn't said anything, Sylvia blurted out after a brief pause. What's the matter? Are you upset that you're not one of the bridesmaids? Caspian asked. Nope. I don't have any opinion on the matter, Sylvia replied. The two of them left South Lake Corporation. Meanwhile, Miranda came to Willow's office. Ms. Stewart, your wedding ceremony is happening the day after tomorrow, right? Miranda asked on purpose. You heard about that too, Ms. Barton, Willow said. Of course. Everyone in South Lake City knows about it. They're all looking forward to the wedding of South Lake City's most beautiful woman, Miranda replied. You're too kind, Ms. Barton. There's no telling what will happen during the wedding, Willow said. Alicia and Richard had to be the reason why everyone in South Lake City knew about her wedding. It was part of their devious plan to humiliate her on her wedding day. I'm sure your husband will organize a magnificent wedding ceremony for you. With how gorgeous you are, I'm sure your husband is extremely accomplished as well, Miranda enthused. Well, he's not that accomplished. I'd be satisfied as long as he prepared a proper wedding ceremony. Willow continued to doubt Caspian. Even though Caspian kept promising he would give her a grand and lavish wedding, so much time had passed, and she did not see him preparing anything for the wedding. Have you chosen all your bridesmaids yet? Miranda asked. Only one Zoe, my best friend, Willow said. As the famed beauty of South Lake City, how could only have one bridesmaid? Why don't you count me in? Miranda suggested. What? Do you want to be my bridesmaid, Ms. Barton? Willow was taken aback. That's right. Would you give me the honor of allowing me to be your bridesmaid? Miranda asked. What are you saying, Ms. Barton? You're the vice president of South Lake Corporation. I'm sure you have a lot on your plate. Would you have the time to be my bridesmaid? Willow said. Why not? It's on Sunday. If I attend as your bridesmaid, I'm sure I'll get some of your good luck, too. Maybe someone will take a liking to me, Miranda replied. I'd never have thought you'd want to be my bridesmaid, Ms. Barton, Willow said. Well, that's settled, then. Why don't you ask your friend to come over? We can go and check out wedding dresses today, Miranda suggested. It's still working hours right now, Willow said. I'll give you the day off. Your wedding is more important. You should take the time to prepare for it. You don't have to come to work tomorrow. Also, the company will pay for your wedding gown. Consider it a wedding gift from the company, Miranda said. That's too kind of you, Ms. Barton. Willow was startled. Well, you're the company's project director now. Miranda knew that Caspian had been hiding his identity to give Willow a surprise, so she did not reveal the truth. Stunned, Willow did not think it was right for her to decline Miranda's offer. Thus, she and Miranda went over to meet up with Zoe before going dress shopping. Zoe was also shocked to hear that the vice president of South Lake Corporation would not only be Willow's bridesmaid, but was also paying for her wedding dress. Miranda brought Willow and Zoe to South Lake City's most luxurious bridal shop. They bought the most expensive and extravagant wedding gown, as well as 2 bridesmaid dresses. When Willow got home that night, she found that Caspian had already made dinner. The wedding's happening the day after tomorrow. I've already booked my wedding gown. How are the preparations coming along? Willow asked. Everything's going according to plan. In 2 days, you'll be the world's happiest bride, Caspian firmly declared. All right, I'll see just how grand the wedding will be. If you trick me, there'll be hell to pay, Willow warned. If I did lie to you, feel free to punish me however you want, Caspian said with a chuckle. I was quite surprised today. The vice president of South Lake Corporation treats me so well. She even paid for the wedding gown and said she would be my bridesmaid. I just hope nothing goes awry on that day, Willow said. Don't worry, I'll make all the necessary arrangements. Caspian was also looking forward to the wedding. On that day, he was going to see to it that Willow was the world's luckiest and most blessed bride. Late at night, Caspian was woken up by the sound of his phone ringing. Even though it was late, Sylvia was calling. What's going on? Why are you calling at this hour? Caspian asked. Bad news, Lord Caspian. The situation on the battlefield has become unpredictable. Tigra's army on the southern border has crossed the border to launch a sneak attack on our forces, Sylvia frantically reported. Caspian was taken aback. It was his wedding in 2 days, but the enemy troops had conducted a covert assault at this juncture. Send someone over to pick me up. I'll head back in person to oversee the battle. This was no small matter. Caspian did not hesitate at all. Initially, he wanted to have a peaceful life in South Lake City and deal with everything else after the wedding. Alas, a wrench had been thrown into his plan. With his soldiers risking their lives on the front lines of the battlefield, he could not focus on his own enjoyment. His country came before his family. He could not delay dealing with the battle along the border any further. Thankfully, the southern border was fairly near to South Lake City. He could rush over tonight to supervise the battle. Over the next 2 days, the battle was going to be extremely challenging. He could not afford to be careless. Yes, Lord Caspian, Sylvia replied. After ending the call, Caspian got dressed and knocked on Willow's door. Willow had been fast asleep when the sound woke her up. It's so late. What is it? Willow was afraid that Caspian would try to force her into something, so she did not open the door right away. I have something to tell you, Willow. Please open the door, Caspian requested. Thinking that Caspian would not attempt anything untoward, Willow opened the door. What is it that you had to tell me in the middle of the night? Willow sounded a little annoyed. Something extremely urgent has come up. I need to leave for a couple of days. On the day after tomorrow, go straight to Stewart residence and wait for me there. I will definitely hold a lavish wedding ceremony for you, Caspian said. Chapter 33. Lord Caspian personally oversees the battle. What's so urgent that you have to leave in the middle of the night? Are you just trying to run away now because you can't hold the wedding after all? Willow assumed that Caspian was trying to flee after having bragged a little too much about the kind of wedding he could give her. She had long considered this possibility. Feeling embarrassed, Caspian said, "Something really did come up. It's very urgent. Trust me, whatever. You can do whatever you want. I don't care, not even if you're going off to meet another woman," Willow retorted unhappily. She was becoming more and more disappointed with Caspian. Initially, after the previous gathering, she thought he was somewhat reliable. However, it was hard for her not to feel suspicious when he was leaving at this hour just days before the wedding. Do you think I'd do something like that? In any case, the most gorgeous woman in all of South Lake City is standing before me now. Why would I go off to see another woman? Caspian countered somewhat helplessly. He knew Willow had misunderstood him. Who knows? Maybe you're tired of me and want some excitement with someone new. When Willow finished speaking, she realized how inappropriate her comment was and turned bright red. Why was she saying something like that in the dead of the night? Saying it out loud was too mortifying. Caspian was speechless. Right now, a drowsy-looking Willow was standing in front of him in a sheer nightgown that made her impressive curves just barely visible. Just the sight of her was intoxicating. There was no other woman as attractive as her. What are you looking at? It's not like you've never seen me before. Why are you staring at me? The look in Caspian's eyes made Willow's cheeks hotter. I have to go now. I'll definitely come and pick you up on the day after tomorrow. I'll keep my promise. The day of the long-awaited wedding ceremony was right around the corner. Caspian did not want to leave so abruptly either, but the battle had broken out along the border. Between his country and his family, he had to make a choice. Caspian had his priorities straight. He knew he had to rush to the front lines at once. More could die if he even dallied for a single minute. By the time Caspian rushed down, Sylvia and her subordinates had arrived in special vehicles. As the situation was too pressing, Sylvia was on duty at all times. Curious about what Caspian had to do at this hour of the night, Willow looked out the window. To her shock, she saw 3 vehicles pulling up. Sylvia and around 7 other people dressed in camouflage got out of the vehicles and saluted Caspian. Caspian got into one of the vehicles. Soon, he was out of sight. Willow was stunned. Those people had treated Caspian with the utmost respect. What was going on? Caspian once told her that Sylvia was a chief's daughter, but from the looks of it now, she seemed like his subordinate. Willow was confused, but all she could do now was go back to sleep. She would only find out what had happened once Caspian came back. Willow hoped Caspian was not lying. and would give her a proper wedding ceremony. Lord Caspian, the enemy attacked us under the cover of night to claim the border. Why don't I arrange for a flight to take you over there? Sylvia asked. That won't be necessary. I fought along the border for many years now. I know the terrain like the back of my hand. I just need to command the battlefield remotely. I'll come up with a strategy to take down Tigra's troops in one fell swoop, Caspian declared. You are indeed a brilliant man, Lord Caspian. You can even achieve a victory from miles away, Sylvia proclaimed. Death awaits those who dare to attack Diatoran. Upon Caspian's arrival at the southern border, everyone treated the revered lord of the Diadem Hall with maximum deference. He was a legend on the battlefield. Countless soldiers idolized him. In their eyes, Caspian was akin to a god. As long as he showed up, the battle would be won without fail. When John Anderson, the commander of the troops at the southern border, found out that Caspian was personally overseeing the battle, he immediately came forward to greet the latter. Caspian's presence proved just how significant the battle was to him. Once John saw Caspian, he saluted respectfully and said, Greetings, Lord Caspian. We are honored to have you here at the southern border to inspect the situation. I'm not here for an inspection. I want to use your command center to oversee the front lines. A tight battle had broken out on the front lines, and time was of the essence. Caspian wasted no time in stating his reason for being here. Please come with me, Lord Caspian. John was aware of the battle that broke out. He swiftly led Caspian to the command center. Once Caspian got there, he contacted Wallace Acosta, who was on the front lines, to understand the situation on the battlefield. Wallace was once Caspian's subordinate. He was thrilled that Caspian was personally overseeing the battle. After familiarizing himself with the situation, Caspian began deploying the troops. He was planning on having Wallace perform a risky move to bait the enemy and take them all down in one go. Under Caspian's orders, the soldiers on the front lines retreated on purpose to lure the enemy into a false sense of security. On the second night, most of Diatoran's forces had retreated from the front lines. Everything went according to plan. Despite not getting any rest for over a day, Caspian remained full of vigor. Since he was commanding the battle on the front lines, he did not feel tired at all. Soon, the sky began to lighten. It was the 30th today, the day of Caspian and Willow's wedding. After having a simple meal, Caspian, Sylvia, and the others got ready to leave. All of the troops at the southern border got into formation to send off Caspian and the others. It was an honor for them to see Caspian in person. The thought of the wedding today filled Caspian with joy as well. He had been looking forward to this day for far too long now. He knew the wedding ceremony would rock the entire South Lake City. On this day, Willow would become the luckiest woman in the world. Early in the morning, the Jade Dragon Grand Hotel staff began to set up the decorations. The fairy lights hanging all over the hotel made the place seem quite festive and magical. All of the hotel staff knew that an esteemed figure would be holding a wedding at the hotel today. But no one knew the couple's identity. Lunar Hotel was right beside the Jade Dragon Grand Hotel. It was also well decorated. Richard, the oldest son of the Hudson family, and Alicia, the second daughter of the Stewart family, would be having their wedding ceremony at the Lunar Hotel today. The staff were all aware of that, and most surprisingly, every single noteworthy figure in South Lake City was attending the wedding ceremony. At Stewart residence, the lights came on the moment dawn broke. Everyone started making preparations. Those in South Lake City who received invitations from the Stewart family were all looking forward to the wedding ceremonies happening today. Word got out that Marilyn had someone prepare a set of divorce papers. If Caspian could not fulfill his promise, she would make him and Willow sign the divorce papers on the spot. All of the scions and young men of South Lake City were dressed to the nines. They were dreaming about becoming Willow's next husband. Among them, Nicholas was the most excited about that. Meanwhile, the prominent figures who received a wedding invitation from Caspian were ecstatic and deeply honored. Caspian's guests included the wealthiest people, and most influential politicians in Diatorin. Upon hearing that they were invited to his wedding, they swiftly rushed over to Stewart residence in South Lake City. Chapter 34. An attempt to assassinate Lord Caspian. The most prominent families from Dord City, such as the Carr family, the Stein family, the Giles family, the Lloyd family, and the Lawson family, came over to South Lake City in a grand procession of luxury cars. They were now making their way over to Stewart residence. Jordan Carr, Felix Stein, Zach Giles, Harris Lloyd, and Sean Lawson were all dressed in their best as they led their respective entourages. Sporting Dord City license plates, the convoy of million-dollar supercars snaked along the roads of South Lake City. Everyone turned to marvel at the sight. Bright and early that day, all of the most influential figures in Dord City set off to South Lake City with one goal in mind: to attend Caspian and Willow's wedding. Willow woke up at dawn and started getting ready. Apart from needing to prepare for the wedding, she also could not sleep well last night. Caspian's departure made her feel anxious. Even though they had not been together for long, she was used to having him by her side at all times. She had a hard time adjusting to him being gone the last 2 days. Soon after Willow woke up, Miranda called. "Morning, Ms. Barton," Willow said after taking the call. "Are you ready, Willow?" "Zoe and I are outside waiting for you," Miranda informed. "I'm up, but why did you come over so early?" Willow was startled. She was the bride, so why did it feel like the other two women were even more eager than she was? "It's your wedding day. As your bridesmaids, it's our duty to get ready as early as possible. Hurry down, and bring your wedding gown with you. You need to get your hair and makeup done. It'll take quite some time," Miranda urged. "Okay, give me a minute. I'll be right there." After ending the call, Willow got herself ready and went downstairs with the wedding gown in hand. As soon as she stepped out the door, she saw a brand new Porsche parked outside. Miranda and Zoe both waved at her. Miranda had driven over in the Porsche. "Willow, all you have to do today is play the role of the beautiful, blushing bride." "I'll drive," Miranda said with a chuckle. "Thank you, Ms. Barton." Willow nodded with a faint smile. "You don't need to be so courteous with me. Come, let's go." Miranda opened the door to the driver's seat. The three women got into the car and headed to South Lake City's most famous beauty salon. They were going to get their hair and makeup done. "You're definitely going to be the luckiest bride in South Lake City today, Willow. Even Miss Barton is here as your bridesmaid," Zoe enthused. "We don't know for sure yet. I hope Caspian can be trusted," Willow remarked thoughtfully. "By the way, what has Caspian prepared so far?" Zoe asked curiously. After saying that something urgent came up, he left in the middle of the night last night. "I haven't seen him since," Willow replied. "What? Why would something urgent happen so late at night? It'll be your wedding in a few hours. Could anything be more important than that?" Zoe looked at Willow in shock. "I don't know. He told me to wait for me and to trust him." Willow shook her head. She had no idea what Caspian was up to either. "I'm sure Caspian's just trying to give you a huge surprise. That's why he left early to prepare everything," Zoe assured Willow. "I hope so. If he ends up tricking me, I won't forgive him," Willow declared. Miranda was speechless. If Willow did not want a man as wonderful as Caspian, Miranda was more than willing to take him off the former's hands. Over on the front lines of the battlefield at the southern border, John received a classified report. Diatorin had foiled Tigra's covert operations. When Tigra found out that Caspian was personally supervising the battle, they dispatched the Apex Legion, their most powerful assault unit. Intending to assassinate Caspian on the 30th, the unit had already infiltrated South Lake City. There were two places where the enemy could be ambushing Caspian. One possibility was as he made his way back to South Lake City, while the other was during the wedding ceremony at the Jade Dragon Grand Hotel. John was under strict orders from Diadem Hall to ensure Caspian's safety. If anything happened to Caspian, John would have to take full responsibility. The severity of the confidential information left John feeling thunderstruck. "Quick, Send out the fighter jets. We must protect Lord Caspian. If we encounter any enemy forces, kill them on sight." John swiftly gave his order to the soldier standing beside him. "Yes, sir." His second-in-command swiftly began deploying the troops. "Deploy the foot soldiers as well. Tell them to stay close to Lord Caspian." Afraid that something unexpected might happen, John gave yet another command. "Yes, sir." Yet another subordinate started carrying out John's order. "Mobilize our strongest Apex Legion as well to protect Lord Caspian in secret. They can respond to the situation quicker." John gave his third order. All at once, dozens of fighter jets flew off from the southern border. The armored vehicles and missile launchers set off as well. The Apex Legion was the first to be deployed. "Arrange another vehicle. I'm going in person to ensure Lord Caspian's safety." Despite all the arrangements John made, he was still uneasy. He only felt more assured if he joined the rest of the troops. As Tigra's Apex Legion had snuck into South Lake City, there was an undercurrent flowing through the city. In South Lake City, the tension would be coming to a head on the 30th. The city was also going to witness the grandest event ever held within its borders. Chapter 35, Ambushed on the Road. At this moment, 3 heavily modified armored off-road vehicles were speeding down the road leading back to South Lake City. Caspian and Sylvia sat in the vehicle in the middle. Subordinates from Diadem Hall rode in the vehicles in front and behind them. Just then, Sylvia got a call from Hugo Weber, the subordinate she put in charge of the wedding arrangements. "How are the preparations coming along?" Sylvia asked. "General Frost, the prominent families from Dord City have arrived in South Lake City. All of the preparations have been made. We're now awaiting further orders," Hugo reported. "There's no rush. Tell them to sit tight. Lord Caspian and I are making our way back to South Lake City. Wait until we arrive before heading over to Stewart Residence to pick up the bride," Sylvia instructed. "Understood," Hugo replied. "You settled the suits and the rings, right?" Sylvia checked. "Rest assured, General Frost." "Everything's ready," Hugo assured. "That will be all for now then," Sylvia said before terminating the call. The 3 vehicles entered a bumpy and rough stretch of road with mountains on both sides. They were surrounded by dense shrubbery on all sides. As soon as Sylvia's call ended, she received another call from an unfamiliar number. "Hello. Who is this?" Sylvia asked. "General Frost, this is John Anderson." Having procured Sylvia's number, John immediately called her to report the situation. "I just received a report saying that Tigra's Apex Legion has entered South Lake City. They're planning on attacking Lord Caspian. They could be near you right now. I've deployed fighter jets and soldiers to act as your reinforcements. Please be careful." Sylvia's expression turned grim. They were currently passing through a mountainous region covered in forest land, a natural source of cover. If their enemy's Apex Legion was here, they would be in serious trouble. With a sinking feeling, Sylvia immediately grabbed her walkie-talkie and commanded loudly, "Enemy forces are here to ambush Lord Caspian. Drive as quickly as possible. We need to get out of here at once." Upon hearing Sylvia's words, Caspian grew alert. The drivers floored the accelerators and the vehicles sped up. All of a sudden, a trail of smoke streaked across the sky as a mortar bomb shot toward the 3 off-road vehicles. Thankfully, the vehicles had accelerated, and the bomb fell behind them with a loud bang. A massive crater was formed. The people in the other 2 vehicles had heard of the situation. They quickly closed in to shield Caspian's vehicle. Sylvia was still on a call with John, and he heard the explosion. "General Frost, is everything all right?" John asked frantically. Sylvia could not spare the time to respond to John. She was in battle mode and gearing herself up to make any necessary sacrifice. If another bomb shot out, she would throw herself in front of Caspian to shield him without hesitation. Yet another deafening sound rang out. A bomb had been shot over from the other side of the mountain. Clearly, there were enemy forces on both mountains. The situation was critical. Though the bomb did not hit its target, The impact of its landing was forceful enough to make the drivers lose control of their vehicles. Despite being a veteran when it came to battle, Caspian was still an ordinary human being made of flesh and blood. He could not do anything against artillery attacks. The series of explosions was making John panic. The situation was worse than he expected. All he could do was order the unit leaders to advance quickly to provide support. Evidently, the enemy had formulated a well-crafted plan. Caspian's convoy did not even have a moment of peace. The third bomb had been dropped. This time, the enemy seemed to have calculated the trajectory to ensure the bomb would hit the vehicle Caspian was in. Caspian was the biggest threat to Tigra. Their goal was to get rid of him. They did not care about the passengers in the other two vehicles. When the driver heard the sound of the bomb whizzing through the air, he immediately reacted. Alas, the vehicle was speeding too quickly. The abrupt slamming of the brakes nearly made him lose control of the vehicle. The bomb exploded right in front of the vehicle. There was a loud bang, and the shockwave sent Caspian's vehicle flying. Caspian swiftly kicked the door open and yelled, "Get out!" He was the first to jump out. Caspian knew full well that he was the enemy's target. By showing himself, he could draw fire and prevent the vehicle from getting destroyed. True enough, the moment Caspian appeared, the snipers on standby immediately zeroed in on him. Thankfully, Caspian had quick reflexes. He instantly hid behind a large tree. Having seen that, Sylvia and the others ran out of the vehicles as well. The other two vehicles came to a stop as well. Everyone got out as quickly as possible and charged toward Caspian's hiding spot. Caspian was the Lord of Diadem Hall. They were going to protect him no matter what. "Get away. Don't come near me," Caspian hurriedly shouted at Sylvia and the other guards who were making their way over to him. It was his wedding day. He did not want his people to die on this day. If his subordinates died trying to protect him, he would not be in the mood to hold his wedding anymore. Alas, at a time like this, Sylvia and the guards refused to listen to Caspian's orders. In their eyes, Caspian's life mattered more than anything else. They continued to close in on Caspian. They were even prepared to act as physical shields to defend him from gunfire. Enemy forces were hidden within the mountains on both sides. They were attacking on both fronts even though Caspian had found a temporary hiding spot. It was futile. He was still exposed to the enemy. The enemy had positioned themselves extremely well. There were no blind spots left uncovered by the sniper's range of fire. Earlier on, the situation had been far too critical. Being on the road meant Caspian was out in the open, and the car was a ticking time bomb, so he had no choice but to seek temporary refuge behind a tree. Thus, his present position was a dangerous one too. True enough, the enemy's snipers once again had their rifles trained on him. Caspian heard the sound of the bullet whizzing through the air. He swiftly moved away from the tree. The bullet pierced a hole through the tree's massive trunk. Caspian had evaded in time. If he had not, the consequences would have been unthinkable. The moment Caspian stepped away from his hiding spot, he was subjected to a barrage of shots fired from machine guns. Sylvia and the others witnessed this. They dashed over to Caspian in a frenzy. "Watch out, Lord Caspian." The subordinate in the lead immediately threw himself in front of Caspian. At the same time, he saw a bullet coming straight at him. Chapter 36. Why isn't Caspian back yet? A muted thud rang out. Blood splattered everywhere. The subordinate's face was covered in blood, but he was still alive. "Lord Caspian, you, Harry Lewis," the man who wanted to shield Caspian from the bullet, had frozen. He was staring at the scene in front of him in shock. Blood was gushing out of Caspian's right arm. During that critical split second, Caspian stuck his arm out to shield Harry. He had used his own arm to protect his subordinate. The moment the bullet struck Caspian, his blood sprayed onto Harry's face. Caspian considered every one of his soldiers his kin. He could not stand by and allow Harry to die protecting him from the bullet. Furthermore, it was a special day today. He was not going to let anything happen to anyone. Harry was stupefied to find that Lord Caspian of all people had shielded him from the bullet. He was ready to die defending Caspian, but instead, it was Caspian who saved him. Sylvia and the others were also thunderstruck to find that Caspian had been hit. "Lord Caspian," the crowd exclaimed as they rushed toward him. Caspian used his left hand to grab Harry's gun as he yelled, "Stop! Break out of the encirclement. That's the best form of defense." Then, he raised the gun, aimed at the mountain, and pulled the trigger. All 3 shots he fired hit their marks. Every single enemy Caspian detected was killed in an instant. Caspian was an expert marksman. Even though his right arm was injured, he was just as skilled with his left. After hearing Caspian's order, it finally dawned on Sylvia and the others that breaking through enemy lines was the best way to protect him. It was pointless for them to act as physical shields. The enemy had come prepared and would have more than enough firepower. There were less than 10 of them. If they did not break through the encirclement, sooner or later, they would all go down. Once they all died, it was easy to predict what would become of Caspian. When they realized the severity of the situation, they began to look for cover and launch a counterattack. Since there were enemies on both sides, Caspian and his people split into 2 groups as well. Caspian, Sylvia, and Caspian's other subordinates were all experienced fighters who had survived numerous battles. Even under such dire circumstances, they were able to leverage the favorable terrain and rely on their wealth of experience to mount a counterattack. For the sake of cutting off Caspian's retreat, the enemy had bombed all 3 of the off-road vehicles. Meanwhile, back in South Lake City, Willow, Miranda, and Zoe were all dressed and ready for the wedding. They were making their way over to Stewart residence. "Why do I feel anxious? I get the feeling that something bad is about to happen," Willow said uneasily as she sat in the car. "Stop. Don't say such things. Today's going to be a good day. Maybe you're just too nervous," Zoe suggested. "You don't need to be so nervous. Willow, I'm sure your husband has prepared a great surprise for you." Miranda knew that Caspian was wealthy, so she did not think much of it. "But, ever since Caspian left in the middle of the night last night, I haven't heard from him at all," Willow said. "If you're worried, why don't you give him a call? That'll clear things up for you." Miranda patted Willow on the shoulder and comforted. "Okay," Willow nodded. She had forgotten she could do that. She took her phone out and called Caspian. Yet, Caspian's phone was turned off. Amid the chaos earlier, Caspian had left his phone in the vehicle, and the vehicle had been destroyed by the enemy. Both Caspian's and Sylvia's communication devices had all been destroyed. It made sense that Willow could not get a hold of him. After all, Caspian was fighting for his life right now. "His phone's off," Willow said. She felt even more uneasy now. "Why? Did he really run off?" Zoe asked. She was beginning to feel suspicious as well. "You're overthinking it. I'm sure Mr. Lynch is just doing this to give you a big surprise. That's why he turned his phone off. He wants to appear before you when you least expect it." Miranda had total faith in Caspian. Was it not a piece of cake for the CEO of South Lake Corporation to hold a grand wedding that would rock the entire South Lake City? Willow abruptly recalled what Caspian said before he left. He told her to wait for him at Stewart residence no matter what. He said he would not let her down. Caspian's words and Miranda's guesses seemed to match. Willow had to talk herself into believing that Caspian was giving her a surprise. "All right, then. Either way, we're all ready. We just need Caspian to show up. We'll do as planned and wait for him at Stewart residence," Willow said as she exhaled. When they arrived at Stewart residence, the place was packed. All of the Stewart family's relatives had gathered there. They were stunned to find that Miranda, the vice president of South Lake Corporation, had come as well. "Ms. Barton, it is our honor to have you gracing us with your presence. Welcome. Do come in and have a seat. We're so glad that you have come to our home." Donald, Alicia's father, greeted Miranda respectfully. "You're dressed as a bridesmaid, Ms. Barton. Are you here to be my Alicia's bridesmaid?" Alicia's mother was all smiles as she asked. "I'm here as Willow's bridesmaid today," Miranda declared. The smile on Alicia's mother's face stiffened. She finally noticed Willow, who was also dressed in a wedding gown, as she stood to the side. Willow looked strikingly beautiful in her resplendent wedding gown. Before this, Donald and his wife did not even realize that the gorgeous woman standing beside Miranda was Willow. They only recognized Miranda and Zoe, the two women dressed as bridesmaids. Miranda was the vice president of Southlake Corporation. Ordinarily, the Stewart family would not even. If they were able to strike up a good relationship with her, it would certainly make it easier for them to collaborate with the company. Still, upon hearing that Miranda was here to support Willow, the Stewart family became displeased. Who would have thought that after only joining Southlake Corporation for a few days, Willow would already be able to get Miranda to be her bridesmaid? How did she manage to establish such a close relationship with Miranda? Despite the questions they had, they still welcomed Miranda's presence. After all, she was the vice president of Southlake Corporation. In terms of social standing, few could compare to her. On the other hand, no one greeted Willow. Since it was her family's home, she and Zoe entered freely. Alicia had just gotten ready as well. Beside her stood 20 bridesmaids who were all lavishly dressed. "I never thought you'd be brave enough to come to Stewart residence, Willow. You're not afraid of humiliating yourself at all," Alicia sneered. "This is my home. Why can't I come back here?" Willow asked. "Ha. Since you insist on torturing yourself, I'll fulfill your wish. Richard and I have already invited the most powerful people in all of Southlake City. What about you? Who have you invited as your guests?" Alicia scoffed haughtily. Alicia was secretly pleased that Willow had come. She would have been a little disappointed if the latter had not shown up. "Take a look. See how many people are here as my bridesmaids," Alicia continued smugly. "Many other people wanted to be my bridesmaids too, but I rejected them. Look at you. How pitiful. You only have 2 bridesmaids. Your bridal party can't compare to mine at all." The moment Alicia finished speaking, she glanced at the bridesmaids standing beside Willow. To her shock, one of them was Miranda. "Why are you here, Miss Barton?" "That's right. I'm here as Willow's bridesmaid," Miranda replied. "Willow, it's one thing for you to humiliate yourself. Why are you dragging Miss Barton down with you?" Alicia mocked. The Stewart family's relatives began to pepper Willow with questions. "Where are you having your wedding, Willow? Which hotel did you book?" Willow was a little flustered. "I don't know where the venue is. Caspian made all the arrangements." As soon as she said that, everyone began to laugh in disdain. "Seriously? Do you really think that useless piece of trash will give you a proper wedding ceremony? The wedding's about to start, but you don't even know where the wedding ceremony is going to be. Are you kidding me? Hurry up and take that wedding gown off. I'm mortified on your behalf." Their comments left Willow feeling self-conscious and a little embarrassed. Caspian and Sylvia were still caught in the fight. The enemy had positioned themselves in advance. They did a good job of concealing themselves too. Furthermore, Tigra's Apex Legion had undergone careful training and selection. Caspian and his people were in a highly risky situation. Soon, they ran out of bullets. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, the sound of fighter jets rang out. Dozens of fighter jets closed in. They began firing missiles at both sides of the mountain. Chapter 37 pressed for time. Caspian, Sylvia, and the rest were relieved to see the fighter jets. The roars of the fighter jets' engines and the bangs from the missiles hitting their targets thundered together. The Apex Legion hidden on both mountainsides were pulverized. Soon, Diatorn's elite forces arrived on the battlefield as well. When they saw the wreckage of the 3 off-road vehicles and Caspian's injury, they were able to deduce how intense the fight had been earlier. "Lord Caspian, we, the Special Forces, have been ordered to ensure your safety." The leader of the Special Forces unit saluted Caspian. "The enemy is hidden on both sides of the mountain. Get rid of them at once," Caspian ordered. "Yes, Sir. The Special Forces unit did not delay. They swiftly mounted a forceful attack on both sides. Howls and cries of agony echoed through the mountains as Tigra's Apex Legion came under heavy fire. Tanks and missile launchers appeared as well, and another wave of fierce attacks was leveled at both mountain sides. In the end, the army arrived. They swiftly surrounded Caspian and protected him on all sides. John followed closely behind. When he saw Caspian's wounded and bleeding arm, he was terrified and filled with remorse. "Are you all right, Lord Caspian?" John checked anxiously. "It's fine. It's just a scratch. You don't need to make such a big deal out of it," Caspian said indifferently. "It is my fault that you got injured, Lord Caspian," John said vexedly. "You did well. The reinforcements came just in time. How did you know that I would be ambushed?" Caspian asked. "Soon after you left, I received classified intelligence detailing the enemy's plan to assassinate you. After hearing that they intended to ambush you along the way, I immediately rushed over. Still, it was too late," John said with a look of regret. "I see. Let's not talk about it for now. Tell your people to stop advancing. The enemy must have been blown to bits long ago," Caspian instructed. The heavy bombardment had obliterated both mountainsides, and the enemy would have already been decimated. "Understood." John quickly gave the order. "Cease fire. Send people to canvass the area. Capture anyone who's still alive. We won't show them any mercy." Upon receiving the order, John's subordinates sent out people to search the mountains. "Where's the army doctor? Come over and tend to Lord Caspian's injury," John yelled, after seeing how serious Caspian's arm injury was. The army doctor ran over to Caspian. After a preliminary check, he said, "Lord Caspian, the bullet is embedded too deeply. Thankfully, it didn't hit your bone. I'll administer anesthetic and take the bullet out first." "No need. I'm in a rush. Just take the bullet out as soon as possible and bandage my arm," Caspian instructed. "The bullet is too deep inside your arm. If I don't administer anesthetic, you'll faint from the pain," the army doctor exclaimed in shock. "It's fine. In the old days, people even chopped their limbs off without using anesthetic. If they can do it, so can I. Don't waste any more time. Hurry up and do it." Caspian was getting impatient. The sun had risen. He needed to go and pick Willow up. If he used anesthetic now, half his body would be numb. He did not like that sensation. "Lord Caspian, under these circumstances, are you still going to hold your wedding as planned?" John was taken aback. "I have to be a man of my word. I promised my wife I will give her a grand wedding today no matter what, so I tend to do just that," Caspian firmly declared. "But, based on the intelligence we received, there would be two possible ambushes. One would be during your journey back to South Lake City, while the other would be at your wedding venue. Now that their first attempt has failed, they might attack during the wedding. We don't know what their plan is. Diatorin needs you. We can't risk you being in any danger," John emphasized. "Why would I, Lord Caspian, be afraid of an assassination attempt? If I cancel the wedding now, it would not only be an embarrassment for me but for Diatorin as well. How will the soldiers risking their lives on the front lines look at me? Even though this is only a wedding ceremony, it affects far more than just my marriage. We must proceed as planned." Caspian was adamant. "Well," John paused for a while before saying, "You're right, Lord Caspian. Still, my superiors have instructed me to protect you at all costs. So I have a request. We need to make some changes to the wedding ceremony. Otherwise, if something happens to you, I'd be losing my head as well." "What do you have in mind?" Caspian asked. "We must send troops to surround the Jade Dragon Grand Hotel and ensure nothing goes wrong," John said. "Isn't that a bit too conspicuous?" Caspian was hesitant. "Since the enemy has infiltrated South Lake City, we need to be conspicuous. Let them know the first assassination attempt has failed. That way, they won't dare to act recklessly." John continued, "Your Lord Caspian, You're my superior. However, it is my responsibility to protect you. Even if you disagree, I have the power to override you. Fine. You can make the arrangements as you see fit, Caspian said helplessly. Though he did not want to make such a big fuss, he had no choice now. Thank you for being so understanding, Lord Caspian. Also, the enemy might have infiltrated the hotel as well. That would make the situation even more dangerous. I suggest sending 2 female Special Forces soldiers to disguise as Lady Willow's bridesmaids and protect her, John said. All right. You're very thorough. I feel assured knowing that our safety is in your hands, Caspian praised. John had covered all the bases. You're too kind, Lord Caspian. How many more groomsmen do you need, Lord Caspian? I would like to arrange a few people. Sure. You decide, Caspian said with a nod before John finished his sentence. Why don't you return to the southern base with me first? John suggested. Why? Caspian asked in confusion. There's not enough time. We have to rush over to South Lake City at once. It's your wedding day today. But look at you. You're covered in dust and dirt. You can't show up at your wedding looking like that. You need to clean up a bit, John reminded. Caspian once again realized how thorough John was. All right, then, but be quick. We're pressed for time. My wife might get impatient. Rest assured, Lord Caspian. If Lady Willow is upset, I'll take full responsibility for the delay, John declared. Then, he added, don't worry, Lord Caspian. Once everything is ready, I'll arrange for a helicopter to take you to Lady Willow. If Lady Willow is furious, I'll bear the brunt of it. Yes, yes. Let's stop with the chatter and get going. Caspian found that John was quite the chatterbox. Yes, Lord Caspian. John immediately made the arrangements. He chose over a dozen formidable-looking female Special Forces soldiers to disguise themselves as bridesmaids. He also selected 20 handsome male Special Forces soldiers to act as Caspian's groomsmen. If you see my wife, tell her I'll be a bit late, but I'll definitely fulfill my promise, Caspian said to the female Special Forces soldiers. Chapter 38. Everything is ready. Yes, Lord Caspian. The female Special Forces soldiers chorused in unison. Caspian was like a god to them. We're running out of time. Once you're ready, head over to South Lake City to meet up with the rest of the bridal party, Caspian continued. Understood, Lord Caspian, they said with vigor. It was a great honor for them to be tasked to protect the wife of Lord Caspian. Hide your guns under your skirts. Tie them to your calves. If you're attacked, do not hesitate to fire. Caspian instructed. Yes, Lord Caspian. They felt privileged that Caspian, the one they revered, was personally giving them his orders. This had always been a dream of theirs. After making the arrangements with the female Special Forces soldiers, Caspian looked at John. Since I can't meet up with the bridal party at once, tell your people to bring my suit and the wedding rings over to me. Yes, Lord Caspian, John replied. Also, prepare the outfits for the bridesmaids and groomsmen, as well as all the other necessary items. Have them all sent over. Let the bridesmaids set off first to meet up with the bridal party in South Lake City. Caspian continued to make arrangements. Understood. John nodded. There's not much time left. I'm sure my wife is getting impatient. Once the tanks and the bridal party have met up, head over to Stewart residence at once to manage the situation. I'll be right there, Caspian instructed. I'll make the calls to arrange everything. Sylvia borrowed a phone and called Hugo. Hello. Who's this? Hugo asked after receiving the call from an unfamiliar number. It's me, Sylvia, Sylvia replied. Oh, it's you, General Frost. Where are you? The Scions are all waiting, Hugo informed. Something unexpected came up. Tell them to wait there. Soon, there'll be a few tanks heading over to meet up with you guys, Sylvia said. What? Tanks? What on earth happened? Hugo exclaimed. The enemy's Apex Legion has infiltrated South Lake City. They intend to assassinate Lord Caspian. To be safe, we have to mobilize the army to ensure everyone's safety, Sylvia explained. Got it. Looks like the wedding will indeed stir up huge waves across the entire South Lake City, Hugo declared. This is a critical situation. So we have to do this. There has been a change of plans. John has arranged for his subordinates to disguise themselves as bridesmaids and groomsmen. They'll be at the wedding to protect Lord Caspian and Lady Willow. Send the outfits for the groomsmen and bridesmaids over to the southern base, as well as Lord Caspian's suit and the wedding rings, Sylvia instructed. Understood. I'm on it, Hugo replied. The bridesmaids will be heading to Stewart residence in advance. Give their outfits to them first. Time is of the essence. Be quick, Sylvia added. I got it, Hugo said. Once you guys have met up, head straight over to Stewart residence. Don't dawdle, lest Lady Willow starts getting worried. Lord Caspian and I will be taking a helicopter to Stewart residence, Sylvia said. Noted, Hugo replied. Caspian had the army doctor keep things simple as the latter tended to his wound. The doctor would take the bullet out once they got back to the southern base. You got injured because of me, Lord Caspian. Please punish me. The sight of Caspian's blood-soaked arm made Harry feel deeply remorseful. Why should I punish you? You were willing to risk your life for me. That proves your unwavering loyalty. I value my subordinates. A small injury in exchange for your life seems like a fair trade to me, Caspian declared. Harry was moved to tears. Make sure his merit is recorded, Sylvia, Caspian instructed. Yes, Lord Caspian. Sylvia nodded. Harry was startled. I didn't do anything, Lord Caspian. I'm already happy that you're not punishing me. You risked it all to shield me from the bullet. Your loyalty is clear for all to see. You deserve to be rewarded for it, Caspian said. Harry was touched. He now understood why so many people willingly served under Caspian's command. Just then, the troops who had been searching the mountains returned. All of the enemy's forces had been annihilated. Not a single one survived. Caspian, Sylvia, John, and the others headed back to the southern base first. The female Special Forces soldiers who had been chosen as bridesmaids remained where they were to await further instructions. Soon, Hugo's people arrived. The female soldiers quickly got dressed and rushed over to South Lake City to meet up with the bridal party made up of Dord City's most influential people. Meanwhile, Hugo's men wasted no time. They rushed over to the southern base and gave Caspian all the things he needed, including his clothes, the wedding rings, and an expensive watch. While the army doctor extracted the bullet from Caspian's arm, the helicopter had been readied, along with 8 other aircraft that would be serving as escorts. All the preparations had been made at the Jade Dragon Grand Hotel, but the guests had not arrived. Over at Stewart residence, over 100 cars arrived. They had drawn much attention along the way. The procession of cars included brands like Mercedes-Benz, Cadillac, and BMW. This was the bridal party that Richard had arranged. All the Stewarts knew that Richard had come to fetch his bride. They went out to greet him in excitement. Richard looked smug as he stood there with over a dozen handsomely dressed groomsmen. When Alicia saw how grand Richard's procession was, she became arrogant and said to Willow, "See that, Willow? Richard is here to pick me up. Where's Caspian? Why isn't he here yet? Has he run off?" Willow felt a little uncertain herself. She had neither the confidence nor the mood to argue with Alicia, so she kept quiet. The Stewarts were busy greeting Richard and his entourage. No one paid any attention to Willow. Around 15 minutes later, Willow's old classmates came over. "You're gorgeous today, Willow. You look like a princess," one of them praised. "Where's your husband, Willow? Why isn't he here yet?" Yannick asked. "It's not time yet. Let's just wait a little longer." Feeling unsure herself, Willow dared not give a specific time. "All right, let's all wait together," Yannick said. After a while, the scions of South Lake City came over with Nicholas among them. They only had one goal in mind: getting Willow for themselves. They knew that she could very well be forced to divorce Caspian on the spot today. As long as Willow got a divorce, they were going to confess to her and even propose to her. Willow was not only the most beautiful woman in South Lake City, but also South Lake Corporation's project director. If they married her, their families would soar to greater heights too. Chapter 39, I refuse to get a divorce. Half an hour later, the Stewart family finally stopped bustling around and noticed Willow. Where's that useless husband of yours? Willow. Why isn't he here yet? You should just cancel the wedding. That good-for-nothing Caspian has been bragging all this time. I'm sure he has gone into hiding now because he can't hold a wedding ceremony. Why did that piece of trash even think he could compete against Mr. Richard? He humiliated himself. It's such a shame that a useless guy like Caspian got to marry a wife as beautiful as Willow. Some of the Stewart family's relatives piled on their sarcastic remarks. Willow's cheeks flamed. She wanted nothing more than to leave at once. However, she still recalled what happened the other night. She had seen how respectful Sylvia and the others had been when they greeted Caspian. Willow chose to believe Caspian. She was certain he was late because he had urgent matters to attend to. Willow, it's one thing for you to humiliate yourself. Don't let Ms. Barton suffer such humiliation with you. Look at your old classmates. Are any of them worthy of being seen in public? The comments from the surrounding crowd became more and more distasteful. You can mock me and degrade me however you want, but don't attack my friends. Willow could not resist shouting. I told you from the start that Caspian isn't reliable. Alicia gloated. If you'd only agreed to be my bridesmaid, you wouldn't be in such a humiliating position right now. You're the one who overestimated yourself and insisted on competing against me. Alicia, you're going to regret what you just said. When the time comes, you'll see why Willow is leagues above you. Miranda came forward and said she could not stand hearing the comments anymore. Is that so? Let's wait and see then. Alicia retorted coldly. I think you people should leave. Why bother sticking around and suffering such humiliation for Willow's sake? Alicia's mother said to Willow's old classmates. Willow's friends felt awkward, but they would not be abandoning Willow at a time like this. Time trickled away as the crowd's taunts echoed in Willow's ears. As she stared at the gates of Stewart residence, she began to feel disappointed. She was already utterly humiliated. Carl could not bear to see his daughter suffering such disgrace, but he could not do anything. Willow, do you have anything else to say? You lost our bet, Marilyn declared. I have nothing to say. Willow did not know what she should do now. In that case, I've prepared the divorce papers. All you need to do is sign it. Marilyn passed the divorce papers to Willow. Willow's expression froze. She did not see this coming. All eyes were on Willow. The scions of South Lake City had been eagerly anticipating this scene. Once Willow signed the divorce papers, they would instantly get on their knees and propose to her. I refuse, Willow declared while shaking her head. What? You don't get to refuse, Marilyn fumed. Caspian and I are the only ones who have the right to decide what happens to our marriage. No one else can force us into doing anything. Willow remained resolute. Do you want to give me a heart attack? He's useless. Why are you clinging on to him? Marilyn was trembling with rage. No matter what happens, I'm going to wait until Caspian is here. Even if we're getting a divorce, I want him to say it to my face. Willow's gaze was steely. Did Caspian cast a spell on you? Do you think that good-for-nothing has the nerve to come back? Look at Mr. Richard's bridal party. So many people have come to support him. Caspian is nothing but a waste of space. He won't even be able to get a single car, let alone 100. You must divorce him at once. Marilyn's tone left no room for discussion. I trust him, Willow declared. He'll keep his promise. You don't get to decide. Either get a divorce right now or be disowned by the family. From this day on, you won't have anything to do with the Stewart family. I don't acknowledge you as my granddaughter. Even though you're the project director of South Lake Corporation, you refuse to help the family. So why Willow's unyielding attitude had infuriated Marilyn? Everyone was shocked to hear Marilyn's threat. They never thought she would be this harsh on Willow. She was leaving Willow with no choice in the matter at all. Upon seeing that Marilyn was about to chase Willow out of the family, Kate panicked. She quickly urged, Willow, hurry up and apologize to your grandmother. You're already dressed in your wedding gown anyway. Once you sign the divorce papers, you can just pick any one of these fine young men from South Lake City who are here today. Every single one of them is better than Caspian. Willow ignored Kate. She stared at the heartless Marilyn with teary eyes and replied, "Fine, I'll leave. From today onward, the Stewart family and I have nothing to do with each other." Wiping her tears away, she looked at Zoe and her friends. "Let's leave this place." Miranda, Zoe, and the others were sorely disappointed in Caspian. They did not want to stick around either. The moment Willow stepped out of Stewart residence, her tears began to flow. All of the hurt and despondency she felt poured out of her as well. She was severely disappointed in Caspian. That bastard had tricked her. All of her faith in him had been meaningless. What on earth could have been more important than the wedding? When the scions of South Lake City saw Willow leaving Stewart residence, they ran after her. Nicholas was among them. They brought out the rings they prepared and got down on one knee in front of Willow. "Willow, I've liked you for a very long time now. Will you marry me?" Even Nicholas was flabbergasted. "Get away from me." Drowning in sorrow, Willow could not think of anything else. Still, the scions did not give up so easily. "I've been in love with you for a long time, Willow. Marry me. My family owns hundreds of properties in South Lake City. Marry me, Willow. I'll give you a grand wedding. Willow, what's so good about that worthless slacker Caspian? I'll give you everything he can't give you. Your incompetent husband has abandoned you and gone into hiding. As long as you put this ring on, I'll make you the luckiest woman in South Lake City." The crowd of scions blocked Willow's path and fought among themselves to propose to her. Just then, a deafening sound began drawing nearer. The crowd froze and turned to look at the source of the sound. They saw 10 armored vehicles forming 2 lines to clear the road. Behind the armored vehicles was a string of limited edition luxury cars. The grand procession of cars drove toward Stewart residence in all its glory. Chapter 40, 1,000 luxury cars. Willow, Miranda, Zoe, and all the scions hanging around were thunderstruck by the majestic display. The people inside Stewart residence, including the relatives, Richard and Alicia, also came out after hearing the commotion. They wanted to see what was happening. When they saw the armored vehicles, they froze in place. "Goodness me. What's going on? Why are there armored vehicles here? I heard about a crisis over at the southern border. They must be heading over there. It doesn't look like it. The vehicles seem to be coming over to Stewart residence. Look at the cars behind the armored vehicles. They're all decorated with flowers. Those cars must be a part of a bridal party. Is anyone else from the Stewart family getting married today?" The crowd muttered among themselves. They could not figure out what was going on. With the help of the household staff, Marilyn came out as well. She was also startled by the grand procession. Why were there armored vehicles heading toward Stewart residence? No one in the family had committed any crimes. Soon, the cars approached. The crowd could see that they were all limited edition luxury cars. Whoa, that's a Lamborghini. There's a Rolls-Royce too. Oh, my God, a Ferrari. Look at that Bentley limousine. Good God. There's even a Shelby supercar. I can't believe I'm seeing a legendary race car here. There's even a Bugatti. Such luxury. The crowd was gobsmacked. The procession of luxury cars astounded them. It was indeed a magnificent sight. There were several luxury cars in the procession, including Lincolns, Maybachs, Paganis, and Aston Martins. Every single car was truly the cream of the crop. The long line of cars overwhelmed everyone who saw it. Any one of these cars would cost millions. In fact, just one of them was enough to outdo all of the cars Richard's bridal party had come in. It was a jaw-dropping sight to behold. Many of these limited edition models had not even been seen in public before, but they were all gathered here today. The sight of these luxury cars made Marilyn quiver as well. In all her years of living, she had never witnessed such grandeur before. The 10 armored vehicles stopped on both sides of the road and left a path for the cars to pass through. Just like that, the long procession of luxury cars drove right up to Stewart residence. You'll never see anything as grand as this in South Lake City. I know, right? I'm shaking like a leaf. This is all too staggering. It looks like they're part of a bridal party, doesn't it? It does. All the cars have Dord City license plates. I wonder who's the lucky bride chosen by one of Dord City's scions. Besides Alicia, is anyone else in the Stewart family getting married today? Alicia was so thrilled that she nearly jumped for joy. She turned to Richard and exclaimed, "Richard, I never knew the Hudson family had been keeping a low profile all along. What a grand gesture this is. I love you so much." Richard felt embarrassed. "What grand gesture are you talking about?" "These luxury cars, of course. Isn't it a surprise that you prepared for me?" Alicia assumed Richard had secretly arranged for these luxury cars to come over today. Richard felt even more embarrassed now. If he had the means to do a thing like that, why would he resort to such methods to marry someone like her? Just a single one of these cars cost millions. When the guests saw how presumptuous Alicia was, they began to ridicule her quietly. Is there something wrong with Alicia's brain? What makes her think the Hudson family is rich enough to get so many of these luxury cars? Exactly. What a fool she is. She should take a look at her husband first. How can a puny family like the Hudsons afford to splurge on these luxury sports cars? Even getting just a dozen of these cars would be quite the feat already. Look at the procession. There's no end in sight. There has got to be at least 1,000 of them. Even if the Hudson family could afford these cars, what about the armored vehicles? How could the Hudson family possibly have such powerful connections? The crowd's comments reached Alicia's ears. Her expression stiffened, and she asked, "Richard, tell these people whether or not you arranged for these luxury cars to come over today." "Alicia, can you stop daydreaming? The Hudson family has nothing to do with these luxury cars," Richard said exasperatedly. "Could it be that your friends have come to support you?" Alicia continued to indulge in her fantasies. "Do you think I'd be acquainted with such prominent figures?" Richard retorted. "Could it be that a scion from Dord City has fallen in love with me?" Alicia's thoughts grew even wilder. As the crowd took in Alicia's conceited reaction, they itched to knock some sense into her. The cars stopped outside Stewart residence. Over a dozen women dressed like bridesmaids got out of the cars. As soon as they appeared, they attracted everyone's attention. They were gorgeous in every way and comparable to both Zoe and Miranda. Plus, they seemed a lot taller. Any single one of these dozen or so bridesmaids could outdo all of the women standing around Alicia. These women were the female Special Forces soldiers that John had selected. Once they got out of the cars, they looked around the place. Then, under everyone's watchful gazes, they approached Willow, who was somewhat dazed. The female soldiers figured that since Willow stood out from the crowd with her air and bearing, she had to be Caspian's wife. "Excuse me, are you Willow Stewart?" the bridesmaid in the lead asked. The woman who spoke was Charlene Kaufman, the leader of these female soldiers. "Yes, I am. Do you need something?" Willow finally snapped out of her reverie and asked. She had been stunned by the grand display earlier. "Nice to meet you, Miss Stewart. We are the bridesmaids that Mr. Lynch prepared for you," Charlene informed. The moment Charlene finished speaking, everyone was stupefied. How could it be that Willow's useless husband Caspian was the one who gathered this group of beautiful bridesmaids? It was impossible. If they were part of Caspian's arrangements, what about the cars? Had he arranged them too? There was no way that was possible. That good-for-nothing Caspian could not have prepared such a grand gesture. Even Willow found it hard to believe. How could Caspian, the useless man who disappointed her so, be capable of doing such a thing? Even the mayor of South Lake City would not be able to arrange for armored vehicles to escort the procession, let alone him. "Did you make a mistake? You're here for the second daughter of the Stewart family, right? It should be me." Alicia refused to believe that Caspian was capable of making this happen. Even now, She still thought that a scion from Dord City must have taken a liking to her and sent his people over. She assumed the bridesmaids had approached the wrong person. Sorry, but this has nothing to do with you. Mr. Lynch's wife is Willow Stewart, the oldest daughter of the Stewart family, Shirlene stated. Willow felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She was rooted to the spot. By Mr. Lynch? Do you mean Caspian Lynch? Willow remained disbelieving. How could someone like Caspian, who spent his days doing nothing meaningless, come from such a powerful background? That's right. Shirlene nodded. Her answer stunned the crowd. Caspian was the one behind this impressive display. Marilyn and all the other Stewarts were trembling. Besides feeling dumbstruck, they were also confused. Just who was Caspian, the man they considered a useless slacker?